Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah O'Bodwy and Andy Serling. Big day today, 10-race card here, a pick 6 carryover, Pegasus Day, a lot of stuff going on there. I'm going to refer to it as the race formerly known as the Don Day. We would love to banter, and we'll try to talk about those races a little bit at Gulfstream a little later, but we have a lot to talk about, not that much time. So head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code MATCH200, and we'll match $200 of your initial deposit. We have the track stats. Head over to NairaBets.com. Get more information on the track stats. We have a $20,000 hit and split in the late pick 4 at Gulfstream, which is the race that has a higher grade than the Vosburg, there's 2 turf races, and there's, and Signatory at 15-1.
Can you book it?
A little 15-1 morning line on the second choice Signator. Anyway, looking forward to those races. We'll try to throw a little stuff on that if we can get through the card in time. We've got, that's a fun sequence, it really is, and you should get involved, obviously, with that bonus. Pick 6 carryover, $73,199. It's another weird pick 6, right? All you needed were a couple, 2 tough horses. You know?
It was a hard sequence to put together, but not necessarily horses that were so impossible to get to, just all in that order.
Maggie liked both big priced horses. I mean, I had picked the last winner second, but I could never have used the other horse that got up on the rail that won. Forgetting about that, right? But even that, I would have singled the 8. I mean, yes, the winner would have been a C for me, but I could never have gotten to it.
I would have never put that together. But.
Yeah, no, it's something that if you don't play pick 6s, or even, and I suggest to people that sometimes look and go, I could hit that pick 6. Take $2,000 and make yourself plays on days. You don't have to play them. I mean, and the other thing is, it's not like putting together a $96 pick 5 and saying I'm not going to play it, and you could have. You're probably not going to bet for $2,000, but we used to do this on Steve Bick's board. For $5,000, it was the old $2 pick 6. And people quickly realized how difficult seemingly simple sequences actually are to hit. It's a great exercise, and I think using multiple tickets, etc. We'll get more on that later. We'll talk about it as we go through it. We've got the middle pick 4, race number 4, 2, 4, and 7 on our 10 race card. Race 5 is the pick 6, cross-country pick 5. That's a couple races here at Aqueduct, and 3 at Oaklawn Park. We'll be showing only 4 of those as we head over to America's Day at the Races, because race number 9, the 5th season, will be coming after we're off the air. We are on from 12 o'clock from 1 and FS1, and 1, it's not, I think it's 5:30. I think we're off at 5:30.
I think it's 5:45, but I could be wrong.
I don't think so. I think we changed that. I think it's 5:30. Regardless, it's still not going to have the 5th season. Doesn't matter. Anyway, maybe it's day 5. I thought Eric told me that.
No, it was a late change. You're right.
It was changed,
a late change that was announced.
Eric told me a couple days ago that he was going to. That's the only reason I say it. Anyway, race number 1, a big scratch in here of the 0 for 12 Foxy Cara would have been a shortest price. I like Eastern Star. We'll take a look at the race. A few of these come out of there. I was just highlighting 2. Obviously, Foxy Cara came out, but I think the one you want to look at is Eastern Star, if we can get that. No, I don't remember.
We should have it with Foxy Cara.
Just show it with both horses. We don't care that Foxy Cara is scratched, guys. We want it. Can we really not show this video? Okay, I'm sorry. No, I don't care that the other horses. The problem with the truck is that, and it's not their fault. Nothing's their fault. The scratches came out so late that they couldn't take them out of the videos. But Fox Care is obviously not running. But I really do want to show Eastern Star because, I mean, she gets completely and totally shuffled out of the running in this race. Right in there, you can see she's just got no place to go whatsoever. And these are not the kind of horses you can eat and get them to accelerate. I didn't think her last race was that bad. And you look at the race before, and the first 2 races both make her a player in here. I thought she was a logical one in here. You went in a different direction to Happy Smile.
I did. This is a horse that's just a little bit more lightly raced and less chances to disappoint. And when she was coming off that very lengthy layoff at Finger Lakes, I know that she was an extremely short price in that race, but she dueled with a horse that was a huge long shot. Once able to put that one away, she wasn't able to hold off other horses that were making up ground late, and that was that quick 5.5 furlongs. She was checked back and was last early on in that race that several of these do come out of, and I think she's a horse that wants to have more forward position now, 3rd off of that layoff, and I think that with that outside draw, she can get herself a little bit more into the game than she was last time, and perhaps have more of an opportunity to be involved in a race where she was sort of in that 3-way photo for 3rd last time. More forward position for her and less opportunities to disappoint overall.
Okay, she didn't get left last time, but I wasn't a big fan, but obviously in this race she can win. Echo in Eternity, I think, is a very scary horse in this race. Sort of the bar and the Flying P has come live in the last couple of months, and Bruce Levine coming back. I think it's a positive move for this horse, for a horse that's just fast enough to win, even based on the races that she's run in the past. Race number 2, the horse I liked in race number 2, Scratched. I think we both have the same horse on top in Keystone Field, but at the end of the day, Linda Rice wins with these kind of big drop downs, and I was going to try to beat her with the 4 who came out, and at that point, I just wasn't going to move around. Linda does win with these drop downs, but they're dicey at short prices. I don't care what anybody says.
I know. I think it's completely fair to wish that he had been a little bit better last time.
He didn't get bet last time either. He
No,
never ran.
and I wanted to make more of an excuse for that race. And I know that he was a little bit further back than maybe he really wants to be. He did lose some position, but at the same time, you wanted to see more from a horse going first off the claim for Linda, who's sort of become notorious for having success with these horses that she's claimed from Kentucky. And as you already mentioned, she has good success when she's making these kind of drop downs. And ultimately, I just didn't like anybody else enough, but I think it's completely okay to be wary of a horse like him.
It also is important to mention that he'll probably win if he runs his last race. So even though he didn't run particularly well in the context of that 40 claimer, he still ran a race that's going to make him very tough in this race. So it's not as though he ran so badly that you say, well, if he runs his last race, I don't think he's going to win. I think if he runs his last race, he's probably going to win this race anyway. He is somewhat damaged goods. I mean, but you've got...
But who else?
Well, you've got Alfio on the outside, who's not impossible, ran okay behind a heavy favorite 2 back. I don't think this horse is impossible in here, slop last time. Simply, we'll take a look at Simply before the layoff. I mean, Simply's kind of the other horse. Now, Mark is also dropping this horse off a cliff, and it's a little bit troublesome for him. But the other thing is, Mark's looking and he's saying, well, he's not going to win in hours of 2X. The problem is, this horse could have been competitive in hours of 2Xs. His last race was just atrocious.
Right.
And now he drops.
You have to think maybe coming back in the spot where he was, that they still had some hopes for him, and were sort of looking to get back to the races that he was running sort of at this time. And while he was sort of hugging an advantageous rail for the majority of this race until he angled out for room when he was able to get the win 2 races ago.
It's not his only good race.
No, it's not, but that last race, and now this huge drop in class.
Right. And it's sort of like Mark is saying, let somebody take him. They want to take him. He's still got that condition left, and they wish them good luck with him. And listen, I hope he runs well, and he's obviously capable like you. I end up after the scratch of Keystone Field. I just don't have anywhere else I want to go.
I agree.
Race number 3, the Jimmy Winkfield. We'll start out with Stolen Magic. I think is kind of the horse to beat in this race. We'll take a look at the maiden win. I misread this horse completely. Didn't like him in here. And I was talking to Linda Rice after he ran so well, and she said, I kind of got the horse wrong, sort of, but this is ultimately what he wants to do. He's a sprinter. Because she had done she entered him on the turf twice, both going long. He ends up going short in the dirt. And I don't care how good a trainer you are, you're going to get horses wrong sometimes. The best thing you can do is get him right eventually.
Right.
And she got it right eventually, and he ran him sprinting. I got a good trip in here, but this was a good race.
It was, and he has that interesting path to get here, right, with that turf pedigree. It makes sense to try him going a little bit further on the grass, but able to
He also
realize...
ran well enough just not to drop. But it's not like
did.
she was totally wrong about him. He's just better sprinting.
Right, and he had shown forward position going longer, but he was still able to cut back and not be totally out of the game early. And I think that is another feather in his cap, that he can keep up with those earlier fractions at a shorter distance because they are going a little bit faster. And you mentioned something that sticking to your guns about what you think a horse wants to do can kind of often lead you in a bad direction when they keep running okay or running well at something that ultimately isn't best for them. But being willing to have a more open mind and say, we're going to try something else, and have him really shine in that kind of spot where he was eventually dirt sprinting, and then say, okay, we'll keep him here. It makes sense.
I think that's a great point.
Against him.
I think a lot of people in this game are true intractable, and they get themselves in trouble with that. An $85,000 2-year-old good magic that turns out to be one that's worth a lot more than that. Bergen is the one who will take more money for Brad Cox. And listen, I mean, we'll get to the horse that we picked. I was surprised you picked the same horse as me in this race.
I was surprised you picked him.
I actually really like this horse.
I do too.
But Bergen's last race was good. I mean, this horse, he gets, I know this is whatever, Churchill Downs is,
the minimized.
This thing of racetracks and building situations which makes it impossible for people to watch. Okay, that was unfortunate. The reason I wanted to show the first whole quarter of the race is he completely steadies out
He checks
on
out
the
of
backstretch
position
and loses
significantly.
significant ground. That was why we wanted to show
And we
a
had
quarter of a mile of it.
We
So
had it,
this doesn't
so-
really matter. He ends up closing at the end for second. But this horse had significant trouble, and if you
He did.
are on Naira bets, you can go and watch it, and he's easy to see, and he's going to have significant trouble in the first eighth of a mile or so of this race.
And I respect the winner of that race, Houdet, a perfect 4 for 4, who really stepped it up last time as well. So it's not like he was finishing second to no one either.
Third
I think
horse
that horse
improved
is very
7 buyer
legitimate.
points in the next start. I don't disagree. So why do you like Aircav?
I feel as though he's not going to take the obvious amount of play that the others are going to, and I like how ambitious they were after his debut, which I know it was at Horseshoe Indianapolis, but it was a game effort for him, and horses have come out of that race and did improve, so perhaps a better than it looks kind of effort. He did get a nice stalking trip in there, and then they tried the Champagne. Okay, that didn't work out for him. Going a little bit further in a grade 1 kind of race, we've seen a couple of horses where the Champagne didn't work out for them, and they've come back and run pretty well. He was inside, he was never really in a position to be successful and just passed a few tired horses in there, but now on the cutback, maybe this is what he wants to do, and I think that people are going to overlook him.
Well, he's not as obvious. Yes, his Champagne it wasn't good, but it wasn't, it was an impossible spot for him. His debut is a much, much better race than it looks. The second horse came back and improved 14 buyer points. The third horse, 13 buyer points. Other horses in there ran well. That was a very, very interesting race. And I looked at him and thought, this might be a horse that ran closer to an 80 buyer than a 64 first time out, which would make him a gigantic player in this race. And he's just not going to get as regarded because he's got a more fashionable stablemate, and they're going to bet Stolen Magic. The horse that I don't like in here, and you and I saw the race pretty much the same way, is Iridescent. We'll take a look at the last race, and I think it's important to note that one of the reasons he won is because the third place finisher had this absolutely ridiculous trip and also wanted to jump over the rail. I don't know what he's going to do tomorrow, but he's the horse out in the outside. And he was like a Jacobson they knew last time. He, like so many of the horses we've seen win for David, he got bet much more heavily than you would have expected him to get bet. Listen, he has had success off of wins. He's come back and he's seen horses come back and win off their wins. I just feel like he's running against much better horses. But he did get a speed figure that makes him a player.
Yeah, and he has more experience than some of the rivals that he'll be facing here. I think he's much faster early on than the one horse who does opt to run here rather than Laurel, so I think he gets the lead again, but this is a better field, and I think that he's going to have to show that he can do it against horses of this kind of quality.
And I don't think Kendrick's going to let him get away, and I'm not sure the one won't go, but I thought Kendrick would be stalking him. We'll see what happens. Interesting running of the Jimmy Winkfield, where really there are 5 horses, but 4 of them are potentially players. Race number 4, we'll start with the horse that you've got on top. That is the horse to beat. This is running second, I think 2 races back for him before running into that Todd Pletcher buzzsaw that didn't take any money last time out.
They did not know.
And he still ran his best race figure ever. He's the horse to beat. I don't have any problem with him.
Yeah, I wish I could find some sort of alternative that I really liked enough to put this horse second and pick that one on top, but he's just run faster races, and he's done it twice so far in this kind of field where he has 2 races that would end up winning this race instead of just this one big jump up in number. This was a race where he had to wait a little bit for room. He came running at the end. He just missed. He finished second. Then last time he actually was forward early. Tuscan Sky allowed him to go on with it, circled behind him and blew away. And that's a horse to definitely keep your eye on going forwards. And from the looks of it, I didn't see any Tuscan Skies in here. I could be wrong, but I think they...
Well, Tuscan Sky might have freaked on a wet track. He took no money in that race. I'm not really sure, but I agree. I'm betting on Middle Market in this race. Middle Mark was a horse that first time out didn't run nearly as badly as it may look. They loved Risk It. I know he hasn't come on and done that well since then, but he hasn't done horribly. He just got run off his feet. It was a day that you needed to be forward to be successful for the most part. And he just was completely out of position. He ran fine in there. And I think for a debuter that needed a race, his 59 buyer is perfectly acceptable. His next race, he got squeezed a little bit at the start, and then he got Jose Ortized. And I like Jose, but there have been a lot of horses he's ridden where some of us have shaken our heads a little bit at the rides and sort of where the horses have ended up finishing in the races. And this is a horse where he's not 20 lengths worse than the horses he ran at. And he's also probably not a horse that wants to go a mile and an eighth. but he's not a horse that got persevered with that exceptionally strongly in that race. And I just think he's a lot better than that. And people will think he's not as good based on that performance. I don't see anybody else in here I want. I mean, Quando is the only other place I'd go. The first-time starter for Bruce Levine. There were a few that ran, fair in there, and I just respect Bruce Levine a lot. So I'm going to take a look at Quando too and use him. The 8's the horse to beat, but he's also had his chances.
Yeah, you're right. I think that he's running out of opportunities, but this might be a field that ends up working for him. And you've made this point about Jose Ortiz over and over again, and I believe it to be true. If he feels as though he doesn't have a real shot to win the race, he wraps up.
Just it was a little odd at some certain times watching it last year. Race number 5. Race number 5 is a funny race because the horse you have on top and I have second is the horse to beat. We'll look at Icy Flavors last race, and I have no problem with that. I just have a problem with the fact that 4 straight times he's finished second and a couple of them at short prices, and that's what bothers me. He is way the horse to beat.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to take a short price on him again, I get it. Believe me. He's kind of one that you've expected to get the job done by now instead of always sort of finding someone that runs him down and finishes ahead of him. But he's so consistent, and he's going to be forward yet again. And here, where I feel as though this is a situation where perhaps he might get a little bit less pressure on the front end, where he had to go with Sharp As last time. He put that horse away pretty easily. The Institute was able to come and catch him. I know you've been some interest in Kaz Sugarbank, a horse that was coming from off the pace. We'll get to him in a second, but I couldn't find a huge alternative to a horse that I just think, blinkers on or not, you know where he's going to be.
You really think that Manny's going to let him go on Light Man? I mean, we'll take a look at Light Man winning, and I think when he won, the rail was good. The track was fair, but the rail was good. I don't think he was way carried by the racetrack. But I think here's the thing about this race. If you're going to try to beat Icy Flavor, the 2 horses you're likely to be drawn to are Light Man, who's coming off a 1.5-year layoff. Donegal Surges, who's coming off a 15-month layoff. Top Pledger, by the way, is 4 for 14 at Naira, year-plus layoffs in the dirt, and his ROI is in the $1.80 range. So he actually does okay with these horses. It's not like no problem with Donegal Surges is not that good, and you bring up the pace. He's going to have to improve. He's had chances. But keep in mind, those were 2-year-old figures.
And he passed horses on debut, at least. So unlike Light Man, you know, right, I know, he needs to get a lot faster. But at least he was able to go buy some horses rather than Light Man, who won on a front-running score.
But these are also 2-year-old figs. And keep in mind with Light Man, his figure was a 76. Even the track helped him a little bit. That was a debut figure as a 2-year-old that could be in the mid to high 80s here, which is going to blow this field away. So I do think that he's more dangerous than the 6 because he was faster even then, and I'm always going to prefer horses that are more forward. I just can't bet these kind of layoffs horses, so I'm looking through, and it's like, all right, Messy Magician was the last time, it's 9 Flowing River's not really good enough. I'm not going to take Icy Flavor, and I'm not going to take the layoff horses. Well, then I'm only left with Kaz's Sugar Bank, and that's why I picked the horse, honestly. And he's fast enough to win. It's not as though he's not fast enough to win this race. And I understand his lack of speed, but so does Trevor. And Trevor will do everything he can. Do I love him in here? No. But I don't want to pick Icy Flavor on top, and I'm not going to pick 2 horses coming off year-plus layoffs. Right. It's really as simple as that. There were 4 horses that could win it, and he was the only one I could put on top. I don't love him.
And this does start that pick 6 sequence as well with that double carryover. And I think that you do have a big decision to make here. Are you leaning on a horse like Icy Flavor, or do you end up spreading? Because I think if you end up spreading, you kind of have to look at these 2 layoff horses as well as the horse that you picked on top.
I agree, but I think those decisions are much more hinging on what you do later, and we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with the second half of today's card.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Bodway and Andy Serling. Race number 6. A few scratches in here. I was always going to look at my man Ned Howard with a 9 and give that horse a little bit of a look. We'll take a look at value area, a horse that you both have second, and he's the horse to beat. He got wired by regulatory risk last time, but I'll tell you something. He probably should have won 3 back when he got left and ran the best race in there. And Mark's horse, who won, ran a really big race down in Florida when in her
Almost
third
upset
start.
that big favorite.
Yep, she ran super in there. She's a nice-looking filly.
Yes.
I know regulatory risk and everything his own way. This horse has got a lot of hang in him. And Todd Pletcher maidens that are 0 for 5, that have lost at 2-1 and 7-2 and 3-5, they're not my cup of tea. So the question is, do you have any alternatives? You're taking Shake the Sugar as your alternative.
A horse that does need to get it faster based on that debut, but that was 5.5 furlongs at Laurel, and this horse went off as your favorite, ran into a horse with some experience who she ended up finishing second to, and to close from last and make up the kind of ground that she did, no threat at all to the winner, but going the 5.5 furlongs, I do want to see her get a little bit more ground to work with as well. And Brittany Russell, with her second-time starters, I know these are stats that are mostly based on where she's most successful at Laurel, but she's 40 for 116, so 34% at $2.19 ROI, maiden second-time starters on the dirt. And this was a lot to pay for a World of Trouble, who it's so turfy, but he does have an 18% success rate with his dirt
Well, he was
sprinters.
a dirt horse. I mean, he won the Carter.
Yeah, but he's
He's a pretty good dirt horse. It's not like my problem with this horse, and obviously the horse
She's
is
a
not
little
impossible.
slow, but
It's not just that. It's the horse that won the race. It's got a 40 buyer to start the career, got a 69 buyer in this race, and then a 59 the next time. And in 5.5 furlong races, I start to wonder if that 49 fig should really be a 38 fig. I'm not going to be shocked if the horse wins. I'm never surprised when Brittany Russell wins races because her horses often improve immeasurably from one race to the next. So I'm not going to be shocked, and she thinks enough to ship up here. I'll tell you one thing. In a 5.5 furlong field, this rider just deliberately dragged this horse to the back of the pack. Now, maybe was riding to instructions, but this horse was just taken out of the race.
Right.
I mean, literally dragged out of the race.
broke okay.
Yeah,
So,
no, it was dragged out of the race. And maybe it was instructions. As far as growth rate, you know what? This horse has more of a dirt pedigree. There's more dirt. You go through this family. It's an into mischief, and there's more dirt. And I'm just wondering if this is one that Chad Brown got completely wrong the first time out by running on turf. He obviously feels that he got wrong because he left the horse up here in the winter.
Right.
So if he really thought he was right about it being a turf horse,
She'd be
he
running
brought the
in
horse,
Florida.
brought her down to Florida. And that she's running in here, she wants a little more distance. He also might have felt she wanted a little more distance. I don't know, I never talked to him about the horse, to be honest. But I'm going to take growth rate in here. The other Chad Brown horse, and by the way, apparently his career's not over. He won a race at Gulfstream yesterday. A track that he never has any success at, apparently. When he lost a couple races, it was a disaster. Keep in mind with Martingale, the horse was 1 to 5 first time out because she was an entry with Catherine Wheel.
Yes.
Then she was bad last time.
We both liked her, and she was
awful
she was
in there.
not good.
And Class Act's not a good horse.
No, and maybe you say, okay, she wasn't right on the rail. That was a day where you wanted to be inside. Another horse had a tougher trip than she did against the track.
I don't think it was a huge rail. I just think I think speed was good, but I think the winner was helped a little by the racetrack. But this horse wasn't hurt enough to be as bad. And maybe less distance, and she's not impossible. I'm just not sure she's very good.
I know.
We'll see what happens.
Did you know that growth rate and value area are cousins?
Really?
Yes.
That's nice.
I knew you were dying for that
That's
information.
good to know. Are horses actually considered cousins?
Probably not. But
I would probably focus on 6 and 8 in this race. The others don't do a lot for me as my mains. You obviously would be using the 7 primarily. Yes. Race number 7 is a problematic situation because we both picked an idiotic horse that probably has no chance to win. So we'll start out by talking, and it's not really a great look when we both pick the same idiotic horse. I don't want to pick Maker's Candy at a short price.
No.
But the reality is, looking at the last race, he's way the horse to beat. Way the horse to beat, and I think he's probably going to win, and he would be an A for me. See, my horse wouldn't be an A. He's the kind of horse I'm happy to lose a few dollars betting individually in the race. But in a pick 6, I don't want to put a whole lot of money through Champion's Dream.
He's certainly not one that you would rely heavily on trusting.
He's a small win bet for me in a race where I don't want to bet this horse at a short price, but Maker's Candy was cut out to be a pretty good horse. He sort of had some ebbs and flows, but maybe he didn't want to go the two-turn races. He didn't really love the sloppy track, and maybe he's just straightening his career back out, and he's just going to be better than these horses.
And Maker's Candy, while he does have that 100 buyer speed figure last time, and you kind of wonder where did that number come from since it's a big jump up, he's still run consistently
Ran
in
90
the
in his
past.
second start as a 2-year-old.
Right.
Or
so
a newly turned 3-year-old.
He's kind of always shown that he had some ability and maybe a little bit inconsistent and maybe a little bit difficult along the way, but he's always sort of had that idea of promise and finally able to capitalize on it. Do you make anything of the fact that Sundays with Sandy missed the break in that race? I feel as though Maker's Candy was always going to be your winner, but perhaps a little bit of a benefactor with another pace presence.
No, I don't think there's any way
No?
that Sundays with
Okay.
Sandy could have kept up with the pace that he was setting. No, the Sundays with Sandy is running. I mean, look at his last race. He couldn't even make the lead in that race going
I
long with a
know.
slower pace. So no, I don't really think it really mattered. I just think he. I mean, B. Drake's Passage, who when he runs well is
Drake's
pretty
Passage
good.
is legitimate,
The
yes.
horse that you have third in here, the 7, Bold Endeavor, did have a trip last time out. My problem is, do I really love him? And did he kind of step forward a little bit in the muddy track? Now, we're listed as muddy. Are we harrowed or are we sealed? That's really
You're
a big
asking the
question.
wrong person
No, I
for
don't know
that.
either.
So-
If Chris is listening and he wants to text me, or anybody knows the track, feel free to text me because I didn't go outside and look to see if we're harrowed or not. Anyway, look at Bold Endeavor's last race because he did have trouble in there. There's an argument he might have won this race if he hadn't gotten blind switched, but he might have done it while getting a perfect trip otherwise.
I was going to say, up until that point, he's saving ground towards the rail. He's finally looking for that running room, and while he doesn't get it until the late stages of this race, where you do see him start to come on at the end, right there, we're going to see he's going for a spot. It's not there. He ends up having to switch out. Isn't this just a better field as well?
Yes, I think Trafalgar is better than he is. Obviously, I think the 6 is better than he is. I don't love Unoho, but I think he's better. I'm just not sure he's really good enough. You're a little more optimistic than me. So why don't you
Only
give
moderately.
your spiel on Champion's Dream, and I'll see if I think to add.
Well, we dealt with a situation where you and I both didn't pick on top, but we talked about a horse, 10 Cent Town, who was kind of an interesting claim for the Dutrow barn. Got bet, ran a race that we had kind of never seen before from him.
But he was not running in a field as good as this one.
Champion's Dream is a horse that has the plateau to start with that's already higher than what we had seen from 10 Cent Town.
But 10 Cent Town was running in a race where he could win with an 80 buyer. I mean, there is
But
a big
Champion's
difference.
Dream already shown that he's a better horse than that. So this is a situation where you think, okay, is he going to improve for Rick Dutrow? At least he's already had a place to start where he showed that promise earlier on in his career. Things obviously did not pan out for him, and he's been a bit of a disappointment, to say it lightly. But he's already showed that there is some talent in there somewhere. If he improves for the new barn, I, like you, thought he was a little bit interesting. Not the horse to beat by any means, but at least a little bit interesting given the sort of price that he projects to be.
I'm going to lose $30 on him. If he's 10 to 1,
right?
8 to 1. Yeah, but I mean, he's got to get, yes, he showed some promise. He may have been cranked up for his debut. So, maybe, it's a barn that likes to crank them up. I think it's an enormous trainer change to Rick, an enormous trainer change. And that's why I took a shot with him in a race where I just didn't want to pick Maker's Candy at a short price, but he's the worst to beat. I don't have a strong opinion. He can win.
Yeah.
Race number 8. Mystical Curlin coming out of here is a massive, massive scratch in here. And we'll start by showing the race that Suerte, who's now much towards to beat, 2 back. And I thought he ran extremely well last time. That was a very quick pace for that distance.
Yeah.
Leading contender got a perfect trip to beat him. He put away a horse who was not that bad, and I thought he ran extremely well. He's just the worst to beat.
He is, and I think that he's helped a little bit by some of these scratches. He's ultra
really?
game. Mystical Curlin did beat him, and I mean, he's got a couple.
Oh, but I thought you meant from a pace standpoint.
Oh, no, I think that it's kind of the same. But look, he's just a horse that's extremely consistent. He's very game. He has forward speed. He doesn't absolutely need to be on the lead, though I'm sure Dylan Davis from the inside is going to go, obviously, with him.
Well, isn't Mama's Gold going to go? You don't think Mama's Gold's the speed? Mama's Gold's pretty fast.
He is.
Oh.
They'll be close up together.
Okay. I thought the 4 would be in front.
Do you think that Suerte is going to take back towards the inside?
He's not going
to.
Well, I think he's faster than Duke Gloucester. I don't know who Duke Gloucester is. He seems to be this new horse, so maybe he is going to be super aggressive from the rail. And Suerte ends up sitting third. I think you have to ask yourself how comfortable you are that he'll run as well. But he has rated in races, so
fine.
he's just way the horse to beat. I have nothing against him. I don't need to pick him. He's going to be an enormously short price. I'm not sure David's right. If David's right and Suerte and McCallum are the same price, I'll take Suerte. I think McCallum's going to be a much longer price than him because he doesn't have. Yeah, because Suerte has a dynamic resume. Suerte's got one fast figure last time out, and he rarely seems to run. He runs by appointment only. David's usually right. Yeah. I didn't see that line. I think before I get to him, what do you do with Overstep? I mean, I don't know. Overstep
what happened
could
last time that he
was pitiful. Early. He was pitiful. He never ran a step in that race.
And I remember thinking, okay, he's going to be somewhat forward, especially from the inside. He was nowhere. But
and he never ran.
Is it just a little bit too bad to believe?
I don't know.
I don't either.
He's also a horse that had a significant layoff and has obviously got some issues. I won't be shocked if he wins this race because he ran super in those races here last year.
And he was against the bias when he came back, but
it's not a barn I want to jump on when they have a layoff kind of horse that runs as stinky as he did last time. As far as McCallum, McCallum's a problematic horse because he just takes himself out of races. The last time isn't the only time he's done it. I mean, this horse dropped back last time like he was going to be eased. And then he just came flying at the end for Irad. I mean, and against horses like Signator, who's not going to be 15-1 in the Fred Hooper later today. So I'll take him. I'm wondering what price. Listen, David's got him 3-1, 7-2, 4-1, so it's not like he has a strong opinion. And I'm imagining that Mystical Curlin was a much shorter price in this race.
6-1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So not really that significant. We'll see. I wouldn't bet McCallum if he's the second choice in here. I do think he can win this race, but he's also a tricky horse, but he's supposed to get pace to run at. And this race could get a little bit hungry late. And if Suerte's got to deal with real speed from those other two, and if either one of the 1 or 4 can hold on for long enough and challenge him, then this race could fall apart in the late stages, in which case McCallum can come running by. But I'm just not that confident he's going to do it. And I'll tell you something else. He might be a little more suited to one-turn races than 2. But I'll take a shot with him. I just don't trust him.
Yeah, that's fair.
I thought Mystical Curlin was a huge player in here.
I did as well. I had him second, but.
All right, race number 9. Here's my question with the Interborough. Were they vet scratches? Why did 2 horses scratch that re-entered in a race that we drew last week?
I don't know. I got my scratches from the daily racing form rather than our internal.
You get them from Naira Bets. They're on Naira Bets immediately.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where to go to get them.
There's plenty of.
It's the fastest
avenues.
place to get them.
But no, I don't.
It's always Naira Bets. We'll just talk about a race that we were supposed to run last week. Dr. B. Dr. B is a funny horse because when she wins this race and she ends up the 3rd choice, we're probably going to be sitting around going, well, I don't understand why we didn't just run against better horses all year. Problem I had is I didn't think her Go for Wand was that good. She was so with the racetrack in here. She didn't even run that fast a figure. But she is a pretty good horse who's kept very good company. Are you, though, as confident that she can run her A race without the lead?
No, and I don't think that she's going to get the lead in here. And I think that this was an extremely heads-up, smart ride by Jose Lezcano this day, where you did need to be forward and you needed to maybe be towards the inside as well. And I just don't see those same circumstances playing out for her in this kind of spot.
White Chocolate's going.
Right. And I think, look, she's not the Dr. B that she was when she won the Go for Wand prior to that. She was running a 103 buyer. She hasn't run quite as fast over the past
But that was
year
also a
since
sloppy track where she was able to control in the front end the year before, too. So they're both sort of similar races. But she does have some pretty good figures, and she has run against better horses. And, you know, Ain't Broke, who I picked on top, we'll look at her last race. My feeling with Ain't Broke is that she's just gotten really good, and she's not a horse that seems dramatically pace-dependent. I don't actually mind at all. You know, I just think she's just running these really fast races for Linda, and she's just cruising by these horses. Now, listen, maybe she runs against some better horses and she's just not as good, but her recent form, this is a joke. I mean, she wins under a...
she's not even asked. Look.
Cruising out there. So I took her, but the competition is much steeper, and she's probably going to be the favorite. But I took her. She drew well, and I thought she was super logical.
I don't think you can leave her out. I mean, in any sort of serious ticket that you're playing, I absolutely think that you have to use this horse if you think that she's going to run those kinds of races again, which you and I both believe she is. With splitting hairs between her and Hot Fudge, it was really about distance of this race.
Here's Hot Fudge's last race.
And we'll take a look at Hot Fudge when she was able to win the Garland of Roses, and this was at 6 furlongs, and she held off Can't Hurry Love, and there was a wicked pace in this race that Olga Isabel fell back, and she was able to capitalize on this race. But I think that now with the 7 furlong distance, it might be that middle ground for both of these horses where Hot Fudge might excel, as she is a perfect 2 for 2 at 7 furlongs and has her fastest Buyer speed figure of a 93 at the distance, whereas Ain't Broke's fastest race was going a little bit further at the mile.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Does it really matter that much? Maybe not.
The problem, my problem with Hot Fudge is that I know she showed she could rate last time, but she has had incredibly favorable trips in all 3 of her last races. She was able to control on a speed track 3 back, and Rosebud's turned out to just can't run anymore. 2 back, she's able to control in a slow pace. Last time out, perfect trip sitting behind duelers, one of whom didn't break. So she's had such soft trips. Now, she may get another decent trip, but she's got White Chalk in front of her at speed. I don't think White Chalk's good enough to win this race, but she's good enough that maybe
she should be in front.
She's got Dr. B sitting outside of her. So I just feel like a horse that's gotten such perfect trips, I'm a little skeptical of her, but obviously she can win. Truthfully, I don't think there's a huge amount separating any of the 3 logicals in here. If somebody else wins, I would lose.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Race number 10 is an extremely difficult race. And I want to start out by showing Reddington, who David's got as the morning line favorite. And as you can see from our picks, none of us like this horse. I thought he beat a very suspect field. He did it while being able to dominate in the front end. Now, to be fair, it wasn't a particularly slow pace, but I thought the track certainly was kind to him. That inside horses did well in this card. And this is just a much tougher race with a lot more speed.
I agree completely. I think that you're not going to get the kind of value that you would want to demand on this horse with all of the things he's going to have to deal with in this kind of spot. I think it's a tougher field overall, and I don't really see him having that kind of trip that he was able to capitalize on in that race, where he's just out there and able to have things his own way on the front end. There's a lot more speed in here.
So you've got Brittany Russell, who's got 1 good figure on a muddy sealed track behind Duke of Gloucester.
And
the other 3, the horse will be 40th.
I completely understand.
I'm not going to be shocked if he does well.
No, I completely understand thinking that that's sort of that 1 number type of horse, but at the
he is a 1 number horse. It doesn't mean he won't run it again, but right now he's a 1 number horse.
But that pace, he put away, thank you, John, who was 3 to 2 without a problem, and he was still able to fight on to try to win the race and finish second behind Duke of Gloucester, who you already said we don't know who he is anymore because he has improved so dramatically. Do I think that this might be a tougher field for him? Yes.
A lot of speed in this race.
At the same time, he's already shown that he can handle pace pressure and still be around at the end.
Well, but I don't think he's going to. I mean, we'll see how this race is run. I get it. Listen, Brittany Russell, she's a problem for me because her horses run shockingly well, just like the last one. There's no way you could make that case of that horse last time out. And she ran huge. I know it was second off a long layoff, but give me a break.
No, I wouldn't come up with them last time.
Was a muddy
Absolutely
sealed
not.
track. I don't think we're going to have that kind of track by the end of the day today, though I don't really know because the sun isn't out. This is a very hard race. And I sort of broke it down. I had the 6 open Maggianera. And the more I looked at her, I know Anthracite sucks now. But he didn't then. And you know that Power in Numbers they paid all that money for? You know he's in Saudi Arabia?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I looked up.
Is he awaiting the cup?
Well, he's run twice. He has a win and he has a second. I think they paid $400,000 for him. He had gotten very good. He was a Chad Brown-Klarovich horse. But you start looking at the race he ran, that Ineo race, he was right on top of a face that just completely and totally incinerated and actually ran a respectable 5th. So the more I started taking him apart, the more that was good. And I'm going to tell you something. I know they were Rudy Rodriguez, but we saw a big improvement from those horses that switched from Kelly Breen to Rudy Rodriguez. And I believe that Carlos David, did he used to work for Jason Service? I believe he did. I believe he's his assistant. So we'll see. He's also announced gelding for this race, which was actually not in the form because we had to do that gelding thing.
I knew that changed your mind.
Had to get I just my friend Steve just texted me that actually. I think that the 9 horse Assume Nothing is dangerous here for Horacio de Paz. I mean, we have similar horses in here. I don't think that we totally disagree. I think he's dangerous. He improved off the claim for Horacio. And Barnstorming strikes me as a horse that's going to run better today. But I'll tell you one thing: he was awful last time, but his race 2 back is good enough.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that you kind of think he has to get back to that race that he ran 2 back, since they ended up claiming him out of Kentucky, that maybe just didn't fire last time and could come back with an improved performance. So this is an extremely tough way to close things out. I think there's a lot of directions that you could go in this race. I know we have some similar ideas, but there are a lot of horses in here that really wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and Mandatory, I think, is a major player in here. I don't trust him, but I think he's a major player in this race. I don't think he's going to be. I wouldn't be shocked if he was favored here.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong if David has him that far from Taser. Very quickly, we got about 30 seconds. Filly and Mare Turf for the Pegasus, whatever it is.
I think that you have
Quickly.
to be Didia.
Okay, yeah, she's not going to be 6-1. She's the horse to beat. Thought her and the Mandela horse are dangerous. What about the Turf?
Integration.
Yeah,
who I think could be favored.
It'll be close between him and Warhart. They are. I think Websling will run better. He's obviously not going to be 15-1, but I think that he's like the third horse, but he's got to close it.
Yes.
Quick pick in the
First mission.
Okay.
What about you?
I don't really have one in that race.
Well, you can't ask me and not
I
have
would
one.
bet.
Come on.
I would bet. But you've looked at him more than I have.
Have I?
You care more than I do.
That's
I
not
would
true.
bet Trademark at 3 times the price to First Mission because he beat him last time. So I think he's probably a value play, but I'd use a few in there. I'm going to narrow him down in that $20,000 bonus and head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, and we'll match for $200 of your initial deposit, head on over. We also have the track stats. Head on over, check those out at NairaBets.com. Mentioned we've got that $20,000 hit and splits, a late pick 4 at Gulfstream. In there is the race where I think a Jazzy can win. Signature is logical. I'd probably use a Creative as well. I thought one of those 3 would probably win there.
So you have.
Did you have a big? I looked at that race while I was laughing because I looked a little bit because the Creative was in there, and I did think it was so funny that Signatorio will probably be the second choice as 15-1.
Yeah, I'm kind of against Hijazi. I feel as though he's run well, but he's been a little bit disappointing overall for what they paid
Yes.
for him and what they thought of him.
But he has gotten better lately,
He has.
and
That
Bapper did
second to
ship him.
Speedboat Beach was decent.
Yeah, it was a good effort. This guy got a mile, and he's got speed outside of him, but he's pretty good. We've got $73,000 carryover in the pick 6 here. Starts in race number 5. We've got middle pick 4, starts in race number 4. We've got a cross-country pick 5 with Oaklawn. 4 of those races will be shown on America's Day at the Races. We're on from 12 to 1, I believe it is, guys, on FS1, and then we are on from 1 until 5:30 on FS2. Okay, we're done. Chris Griffin, he's just getting started. He's got a lot going on. Sarah, thank you so much. You're here
Anytime.
with me tomorrow, I believe, as well?
I think so.
All right, looking forward to that already. Great day. Chris, take it away.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. The track is rated as muddy. 10 races on today's card and a 2-day pick 6 carryover this afternoon. Here are today's scratches and changes. Race 1 started the early pick 5. Scratch the 3, Foxy